What you want to become is the essence of something. So when I talked about codifying culture, and so what I did is I got our person who ran HR to bring an outside group. We pulled 140 different people from across the world, and we had workshops that went on and off for 3 days to document what was our culture. You said, well, what the heck were they doing? Well, we got them to write down, what are you afraid of losing? Because a lot of people have certain elements of a company, they try to carry it around like an egg or something. And I don't want that to go away. So we wanted the list of what they were afraid of losing. And then we wanted a list of the things that they saw that they thought were unique or different in terms of the actions and behavior of the people. Like, how did they behave? So there was things that would come forward, like there was a place where you'd spend a lot of time catching people doing things right. Meaning, people would actively be pointing out, Tony did this great thing today. Like, he figured out how this would help the plants grow, the extractor work, and they would promote what Tony did rather than trying to claim Tony's excellence as their own. One of the things that they made as a headline, so it became 8 headlines, and one of them was "Get Shit Done," which sounds like, it's not particularly a nice way to put it, but what it meant was there's a way to move forward always. And if you have a choice to finish the day having moved forward versus saying on the way home, gosh, I hope tomorrow we can work on that, well, that's the difference in a bit of a culture, and things move every day a little bit. We explained to people, and they got it, that if on your drive to work, you weren't kind of speeding, that you weren't excited to get there, then we should change the position you have and what you're about, because we wanted you to have energy. And if you start off with energy, it goes a long way. And so if people see me at the end, there's a company in Calgary called Fiasco, I think it's gelato or ice cream. I've been carrying around their handbook for probably 2 years because I thought they did a better job of codifying than I did, and I carried ours around, kept mixing it. In theirs, they have one thing that I thought we did well, but we didn't codify, which is ask 3 before you ask me. What that means is if you're working, first ask your brain. Brain, do you know what I should do for sure? Have I really trusted myself to ask myself? Sounds weird, but a lot of people don't. Second thing is, do you know what Google is? Did you ask Google? Because Google has a lot of answers, apparently. 3, did you ask the person who works next to you after you asked yourself and you asked Google, so you didn't actually waste their time? Then ask me. So that ask 3, then ask me actually gets people to start trusting, creating, advancing. And you think, well, what's that matter? All it needs is if everybody can be 2% more productive, massive gain. And so I don't know if the ice cream gelato product's good from that company, but for sure you should think about looking at how they do their onboarding of people. So I think you need visibility to attract people, and you need culture to retain them. One of the things I did that I joked that I think I'm a socialist that drives a Jaguar. Now I actually don't drive anything because I totaled my car, and it wasn't my fault Saturday, but it's totaled. A Jaguar driving socialist is somebody that wants to do really well for themselves. They want a Jaguar, but they don't want to leave anybody behind. And so what that means, if anybody here starts a business and works in a business and you are not granted stock options, you're in the wrong business or the wrong person to run a business. And what a stock option is the day you join a company, I say, thank you for joining. I would like to give you 1,000 shares at today's price. So effectively, I've given you nothing. But if we work together and we grow the value, maybe the day you join, the stock is worth $1. And maybe a year later, when you get to have access to the first third, it's worth $10. What you make is $9 times the number of options I gave you that you get for that year. And I think that is a way to make everybody work together. And a lot of big companies, what they say is, well, the people at the top are super smart. They're the only ones who get all the stock options and all the bonuses. And if you happen to be anywhere down the org, you don't get any, or you get very few. I think that's wrong.
But
I gave them to everybody in the company. And the day I left, the day I was fired, can't remember, we had over, I think we had about 160 people who became millionaires just because they decided to join the company. And like one of them that was maybe a millionaire, pretty close, was in charge of cleaning the floor when the business began. And I can tell you he was still there because the stocks kept him there. And I can tell you we had super clean floors. Because if you want, and if anybody screwed with anything, Vic would tell me for sure, I think somebody tried something over there.
So
Because he doesn't want us to lose the license, because then he'd lose his options, and then Vic would be back to not having money.
Advice I want you to bring to the audience is, as they're starting their business, how do they set it up with the mentality of we, and we can do this together and we can grow together, but knowing as you invite new people into the band, sometimes just, and the only place they're playing is capital, how do you merge the sense of destiny with the sense of return on investment?
So if you start a business, you should be a leader. You are not the CEO, you are not a boss. You are a leader. If nobody follows you, that means you're a very bad leader. You should say, am I leading people? And what that means is, am I giving them motivation? Do they understand with clarity what our goals are? And am I enabling them to achieve the goals? So another way to frame it is, I always said, I caused work. Everybody else did work. And if you're doing all the work, you're not attracting people. So I started thinking of it that way. So when you do that, everybody loves to come to work because you're not bugging them. You're very clear what we got to get done, and they go do it. Don't have your own parking spot. Do not have a named parking spot. If you want a good parking spot, get there early. These trappings of office are all reasons people don't connect you. Yeah. You need to drive a crappy car. Why? Because the cleaner won't have a fancy one.
I don't think a Jaguar is a crappy car.
No, I don't drive a Jaguar. I've looked at them for years. I'm a socialist who drives a Jaguar, but I'm too cheap. I drove a Ford Flex that I bought used from a rental car agency because it looks like a loaf of bread with wheels. And there's nobody who's under the age of 40 who's ever been asked, would you like to upgrade at your rental to a Ford Flex? That doesn't happen. So essentially, you need to make sure that you don't scare away your folks that work with you by dressing yourself up in some ivory tower nonsense. Oh, I have my own marked spot and it has a Porsche. I must be better than you.
Yeah. Where do you get your insights and ideas, and what advice do you have for the people in the audience?
People buy outcomes. No one buys technology. Most people don't even buy marijuana. You know what they buy? They buy outcomes. They buy a medical outcome if they're a patient seeking relief from a symptom. They buy social lubricants or perspective enhancing if they're doing recreational. When you use Spotify, the outcome you're trying to get to is an ideal list of things that will match with where you're going and what you want to do that inspire you to become something that you wouldn't without that in your ears and to take you to a place. And so when you're doing all this shit, if you invent something, they don't buy that. They buy the outcome derivative of its existence. And I have so many people running around with a hammer looking for a nail, it drives me bananas. Canopy was the first marijuana company listed on the New York Stock Exchange. And I can tell you, they hated the idea that they listed us. In fact, when we called them and said, can we put our marijuana company on your stock exchange? They said, no. No, we're the New York Stock Exchange. We said, well, we meet all the criteria. They said, no. Okay. My CFO called them back and said, what if a company on the New York Stock Exchange bought us? Would that company have to leave? Because that's where the Constellation guys were located. And everything we did, every time we moved and people tried to stop us and had a negative attitude to us, we knew that we had to get to that stock exchange so we'd have currency so we could buy other companies around the world. I love when an institution pushes back. I don't love when people inside the institution say, we can't do that.